Hi, I'm Jared Trexler, Senior Vice President and Chief Marketing and Strategy Officer here at the American College of Financial Services. And I'm so excited for this discussion with an esteemed group of financial professionals and FinServe ambassadors on the future of financial advice. I am joined by Fatima Williams, Financial Services Professional of New York Life, Mónica Clesse Melendez, she is the CEO and founder of Clesse Financial Strategies, Heather Welsh, she's a Senior Vice President and Wealth Planning Department Leader with Sequoia Financial, and Dave Valdez, he's the Chief Operating Officer of Alaska Wealth Advisors. Thank all of you for joining me today.
Thanks.
So the future of financial advice, really interesting. Dave, let's start with you as we get into understanding client needs, right? Clients are complex. They have a lot of complex challenges. So how do you think about how the future of advice needs to address that complexity in the wealth story?
So I think it's really important to look at the big picture for a client. It's all about looking at the life continuum. It's not about just capturing the older pre-retirees, but also working with the adult children that are working their way into their professional lives. So at our firm, we not only focus on helping folks retire, but we also look at we call them pathfinders, in which we work with these adult children to help them set up their next stage in life. It's very important that we take the time to help them with their planning needs at that point, because oftentimes that younger stage for that client is where they need the most planning.
Yeah, need the most planning. Let's maybe unpack that a little bit. Fatima, how are you thinking about the future of advice and really handling those complexities in the wealth journey?
I mean, we are here, we're human beings, and so instead of us just being something digital, right, and someone can just hop online and look for something to spit out at them, we help create the plan. And so when you have individuals looking for particular goals for themselves, it requires us to be more flexible and more knowledgeable on their options. So they're coming to us with an end goal. And so the path might look different for everyone. And so that's what we do. We create plans. We have to dig deeper into the tools that we have, the knowledge that we have, designations and other things, just being more prepared and more flexible and more malleable to someone else's goals. I mean, the Gen Zers, the millennials have different ideas of what they want retirement to look like or future goals, financial planning to look like for them. And so we have to be able to accommodate their needs and not just spit out some structure that we're used to.
So let me open this up to everyone.
Sure.
As we talk about the future of advice and handling that complexity, how do you unearth that complexity in client conversations, right? I'm sure the client just doesn't come out and spill their life story to you. So how do you think about, maybe a little bit of a process question, but important, how do you unearth that complexity during client conversations?
I can jump in there. Basically what I do and how we handle it in our firm is that we really tell them the importance of having a good conversation and just knowing them, what moves them, what is important for them, for their family, and helping them identify exactly how are they now and where do they want to go. Because sometimes we get a lot of clients that says, they tell us, help us with retirement or with this special need, but they don't really know what they want. So I think that's very important part of designing. So connecting, building a strong relationship and moving more from transactional to a more client-centric approach, it has evolved our industry and profession.
I'd like to add to that
Sure.
too. As the industry has evolved, clients have asked for not just to be told what to do. There's a new clientele of young investors that want to partner. So as an advisor, you have to be able to dance between those lines of being the thought leader in the conversation and being able to influence your client to a better and brighter future, but also have them feel like they're a part of the decision-making process.
To educate and to be willing to be educated.
Yeah, it seems like education and
Yes.
empowerment a little bit too, right? Just a plug for our retirement income literacy study that also showed that when it comes to education, clients rely on their advisor to provide that education more than anyone else, and that's probably a good thing since I'm sitting with a lot of credentialed advisors in the room. So as we think about the journey, right, I've heard the words journey and relationships, the end goal in mind. Let's unpack comprehensive financial advice. Heather, can you talk a little bit about what you think comprehensive financial advice means to you and Sequoia as a firm?
Yeah, when I think about comprehensive, it doesn't necessarily mean let's go from A to Z all in one shot. Really, it comes down to specialization. If you're just going an inch deep and a mile wide, that's not necessarily comprehensive. And the power of advisors and planners being able to really say, I work with clients like you. I understand the needs and the complexities, back to our conversation of how do you unearth those complexities of your situation, whether that be the tax nuances of business owners or executives, and really that ability to drill deep based on their specific circumstances, I think is what comprehensive boils down to.
Monica, what about you?
Yes, to add to that, I think that the client also is looking to see a network behind the face of maybe Monica when it's Monica interviewing and having this conversation with the client. So comprehensive also involves trust, and for them to know that we have a team with specialization that will help them in that design.
So let me unpack, open it up to the group here. I've heard these words team a lot, specialization, network. How do all of you think about the delivery of that comprehensive advice? I'm assuming it's not just you sitting in that chair being the specialist on everything, so maybe each of you talk a little bit about how you and your firm think about that network or teaming approach.
I mean, there's times where, you start the conversation with a client and you see where an attorney, an accountant makes sense to be pulled into the conversation. And knowing that you have a team and being comfortable presenting to your client, hey, these are my specialties. I'm great at X. I also know when to bring Y in to the conversation, and now is the time to bring in Y. Are you comfortable with me making that introduction? I mean, there's times where you keep a bevy of lawyers or attorneys, for diversity and for the necessity. And sometimes they say they might have someone, which could be a great, referral conversation to have and bring everyone in the room. But it's important to know what you know really, really well, and also when you don't know it and when to bring someone else in who is also great at their job, great at what they do. And it makes sense that we present this all-encompassing and knowledgeable front to the client or the clients.
Heather, what about you?
Yeah, one of the things that we've been able to do, in addition to partnering with the external CPAs and attorneys, as our firm has grown, is really to be able to pair advisor teams together where someone has a certain specialization. So let's say if you have a couple and one's an executive, one's a business owner, let's get two advisors working on the same team that have those unique specializations. And in support of them, having an entire wealth planning department that either can be partnering with advisors behind the scenes, or in our more complex planning situations, being able to work right alongside them directly in those client-facing situations, to be able to add that depth and breadth to the team.
How about the two of you? What do you think?
Yeah, so in addition to what Fatima and Heather have said, it's really important to set the stage early for the client, to let them know as they're onboarding as a client that you may need to bring in specialists internally or externally. So our firm is very lucky that we have our own special needs person, we have a CPA, and letting the client know that these specialists may come into the conversation at different points through their evolution with us is really important.
What about you?
Yeah, so adding to that as well, empowering the client is as important, like you all said. And I always tell the client when we first meet, this is what you can expect. This is the process, and we're gonna make it the easiest way possible, but we want you to engage with us and give us feedback in every stage of the way and in every step. So I tell them we are going to take all this information, and with our team we're going to be doing analysis, and then we come back and we give some recommendations, and at the end of the day it's your decision, but we're going to give recommendations that will solve the first stage of this planning process, and that way it builds trust and confidence, and they feel good about it.
So one other nugget before we move on. The four of you seem like the exception, not the rule, right? We do a lot of research that shows that beyond investment planning, there's kind of this erosion or misalignment between client expectations, what they really want from financial professionals, and what they receive. So as we look to the future of advice in the industry or profession as a whole, where do you think advisors are going wrong in the delivery of comprehensive advice?
Maybe focusing just in a transactional
Yeah.
way of doing the job. Just I need life insurance or estate planning, and just staying that way. And you have to let the client know that we are more to that, and that we have designations and we have education, and we are doing what we love to do because it moves us to help them to be in the right path. So
I think a client is far more likely to hold on and retain their solutions when they are connected to it, when they're in agreement with it, and again, partnering, right, to what Dave said. And so if we walk into an initial meeting with an expectation that we're going to leave this meeting with, a particular box checked, I think that's where we miss the mark as professionals, right, and maybe less than a professional in that manner. If we walk in there, obviously we're introduction, we're fact finding to begin with. Let's start there. Let's figure out where the need is. What happens if there's no need in the area that we thought we were going to be successful in that day? We weren't going to be able to check that box because it's already checked. And so if what they have in a particular vein is in great order, it works for them, it's meeting the need for current and for future, let's move along in the process. And don't feel like the walking away without having something signed or some kind of a product sold is missing the mark. And I think that sometimes a newer professional, a newer agent might feel inclined to walk in with, today I'm going to offer life insurance, I'm going to sell life insurance. Well, that's not what we do, right? That's not the quota that we're supposed to meet as professionals. We're supposed to be prepared to be flexible and meet the need. And if that's not a need, we're missing the mark, and it's more likely to fall apart later on. That's not the plan for them.
So this theme of journey, right? So if we look at the journey of advice and move on, Fatima, let's stay with you on the evolution of advice, right? Can you talk a little bit about the shift from products as solutions, you kind of touched on it a little bit, right, to products as tools. So how do you, when you're sitting across from a client, position a product as part of a holistic service offering?
I mean, what is the good of a hammer if you really need a wrench? So like, how do I make an assumption and not be prepared to listen? I have to listen and make sure that what we are doing for you is something that you're comfortable with. And so knowing that the benefits are more of what the client needs to hit the goal, right? And there's more than one way to skin a cat and all the other one-liners that we know. We're going to need the benefits to be in line with what they need for their goal, for their future goal, and not so much just the product or how the product operates and what those characteristics are. That's the small print. And that's something that we can explain on the back end. Hey, this is the reason why we're making this recommendation, because this is the goal you would like to achieve, but also these are the other things about it that you may not know that might also be beneficial to you based on what we've discussed. So it's really about being knowledgeable. I mean, and it sounds very simple, but that is a big deal. Just knowing what you're offering, knowing what you're selling in theory, so that you can be able to pivot and offer an alternative, because the other options offer more solutions and more benefits for them. It's really about what benefits the client's future goals.
Mónica, what about you?
Yes, in that line, I see the client where I talk about concepts. We identify the problems, and there's concepts like we need tax strategies, we need estate planning, we have risk management, but then we use the products as tools to implement those strategies in the long term. So that's more like integrating products to solutions.
Yeah, so both great and I think in tune answers philosophically. Heather, maybe I'll start with you on how do you actually implement, right, and provide this advice that the two of them kind of touched on in this evolving climate?
I think it really comes back to the financial plan. There's been a lot of conversation today about defining the client's goals and priorities, and I think that's absolutely the foundation. And when you put it together in the context of the financial plan, and you can help them see the roadmap and how you can get around those obstacles that could get in your way of achieving those goals. If it's somebody passing away prematurely, or becoming disabled and unable to work, or the need for long-term care, what is the impact on you being able to achieve your goals? And then what are the tools that we have in the toolbox to solve those needs that we've uncovered through the planning process?
Dave, what do you want to add?
So I'm going to build on what Heather has said. It starts out with a plan, and if I may borrow this analogy, I like to think of the client and the financial plan as like the hub of a wheel, and then the products and services around it are the spokes. And once you have that, then you have the actual wheel, and that could take you to the better and brighter destination for the client.
So let's drive our way to the last question here, which is really looking at the end of this journey, far into the future, right? Mid to long term. Heather, let's start with you. How can the industry leverage everything we've talked about over the last 20 or so minutes to supercharge growth in firms?
Yeah, I think it's doubling down on that concept of specialization. Clients are coming to us for a specific need, and we need to be prepared to address those needs. And I think that's you need to be ready to answer their question. Like you said earlier, if you're saying, okay, well, here's what I'm coming to do today. No, it's more what are they coming to us for? And when we can meet those clients where they are, I think that's when the flywheel really starts to turn and growth accelerates.
Dave, what about you?
So, in addition to whatever Heather said is also correct. I never want to lose sight of that this is a relationship business. We could talk about products and services and credentials, but at the end of the day, this is all about making connections with a prospect or client and helping them and guide them through a difficult time or a positive time, whatever it may be. But it's all about the human connection and the relationship over time. If we get caught up in anything short term and forget about the relationship, it could be really detrimental to the business and will not supercharge growth. So I think we have grown organically because we've stayed client focused and focused on these relationships and let everything kind of fall into place after we've established that strong trust and relationship with the client.
So Monica, maybe we can end, because I think growth is very much also a long-term legacy sort of thing, right? So as we look out to the next generation of clients, which often may be the heirs of current clients, how do you think about working in a multi-generational mindset with next-gen clients to also turbocharge that growth?
Yes, I see that we have to not resist these changes, technological changes, and try to understand their way of looking for information, seeking more support in these types of new AIs and TikToks and social medias, and integrate our way in their thinking and the wiring as well. I think that's very important. We spoke about behavior finance, so I think that's a must. That's a topic that we should really deep into and learn more about consumer behavior and how do they feel about money. And teach them that to talk about money, it's fine, it's good, it's a great conversation. We really need to strengthen our relationship with money.
Yeah, Fatima, what about you?
I think that when it comes to next-gen clients, it's not necessarily something different. I think the roadblocks with older generations might have been, for example, an aversion to annuities, right? Or in general, just because of the horror stories that some have experienced. I think there was an overwhelming group of people who were like, they don't want them. And so now we have next gen, and that roadblock with them might be social media, right? There's a whole other talking ear, a whole other conversation that we have to be knowledgeable of and understand what they're consuming and how they're consuming it to be able to combat it, confront it, or maybe even confirm it. There's certain things that maybe they've heard that make sense in general, they're truthful, right? We can start with either true or false for one, and then also, is it applicable to you, right? The word trust, everyone wants a trust. Do you need one? It's an easy word. The word is not itself, is not complex, but the different types of trust, what applies to you, what your needs are, and what your future goals are, might make your needs for a trust completely different than someone else's in a similar situation because your family structure, your intentions, whatever. So just being able to, again, keep your knees bent, keep your, that steady and ready for almost anything so that you can pivot. It requires a lot because these younger generations are going through a great deal of things. We've got influencers, we've got business owners, they're, the retire early mindset and not necessarily shunning a young person's concept, but explain, sure, we can do that. This is what it looks like. Like, let's put the plan together and let's see if you're comfortable sticking to that plan and being that strategic and keeping that structure, right? Hey, I want to lose 100 pounds by next summer. Okay, let's put a plan together. In any other circumstance, if there's a goal, we would set that marker and then we would always refer back monthly or quarterly or annually towards achieving that goal. Have we made any steps in the right direction? Have we faltered? Do we need to reset? Is that really attainable for you or achievable for you? It's always about referring back to the plan. And if the plan itself needs to be amended, that's fine. But we also need to understand and agree that now we're talking about the goal is changing, so let's not keep the old mindset of moving or charging in the same direction with the same fervor, right? So it's really just still knowing what the generation or the group of people, your niche, is actually experiencing and going through, so that you can talk to them and listen and understand their own roadblock might be the person sitting next to them that's going through the same situation. You don't have the resources, or you don't have the same debt, or whatever else the issue is. Everything is not the way you might think it is. It's not always the same. So just being prepared to answer their questions and not shut them down, to listen and still be able to provide the education like we would in any other circumstance with any other generation.
So I've learned a lot over the last 20 to 25 minutes. I wrote down a few words here, right? I really like alliteration, so bear with me, right? Plan and process, and then relationships, relevance, and rigor, right? We've talked a lot about specialization. Knowledge truly is power. And so as we go towards the future of financial advice, I think these four are really indicative that the future is in fact bright. So thank you all for joining me. I really appreciate it. And thanks to all the viewers out there for this FinServe Network panel.